So I have to be in my correct spot here. Where do we start with probing? What tooth number? 1. Okay, so do I start on the mesial or do I start on the distal?
Distal.
Distal. So I start on 1 distal buccal. Okay, so since I have y'all all here, I'm going to show you this right now. So this is a perio chart. Okay, every patient has one of these in their chart. It should have the patient's name up here and their birth date, because if this paper was to fall out of the chart, then we can know who it belongs to. On the side over here, there's numbers 1 through 6, 1 through 6, 1 through 6, 1 through 6. We put today's date or the day that you're probing on that first line. So today was 3/11, so I put it there. So I'm going to start here because this is number 1 and it goes to 16. This is buccal. This part would be lingual. This part's the lingual of 17 through 32, and this part is buccal of 17 through 32. Okay, so if I start with 1, and whenever y'all first start learning how to probe, it's going to take y'all forever to do it, and you're probably going to have to write down 1 number at a time because you might get lost. So I always start with that distal buccal of number 1. I have to have my grasp correct. I'm going to fulcrum. I'm retracting the cheek. I'm doing distal buccal line angle. I'm going to slide in, and then I'm going to bob, bob, bob around that distal, and then I'm going to flare at 45 degrees, slightly push down, and whatever the deepest number is between that line angle and where I ended is the number that I'm going to record for my distal buccal reading. So here, this is number 1, and there's going to be 3 numbers in each box. So I start with the distal buccal. So if it was a 4, then I'm going to write a 4 right there. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to start back at that distal buccal line angle, and I'm going to insert, and then I'm going to bob, bob, bob. See how I'm doing my wrist and I'm not moving my fingers? And I'm going to bob all the way to the mesial buccal line angle right there. Whatever that deepest reading is the reading that I would put for the direct buccal. So if that was a 4, then I would put a 4 right there. So then I can come and I'm going to start back at my mesial buccal line angle, and I'm going to bob, bob, bob until I reach that contact. Once I reach that contact, I'm going to flare. So I'm pulling or rolling it away from me, and then I'm going to slightly push down, and whatever that deepest reading is between here and here is the number that I record for the mesial. So 444 on that tooth, on the facial. So then you would go all the way around. So once I get to 8, with 8, I'm still doing distal facial line angle to the distal. I don't have to flare as much because these teeth are thinner. So whatever that deepest reading is, I would put for 8. So that would be, I'm going to call it a 3. And then I would start back at the distal facial line angle. I would go across the buccal to the mesial line angle. Whatever that deepest reading is, I would record it directly in the center. And then I would follow up with that mesial, walking it in a proximal flare, press down, whatever that deepest reading is, and I would put it there. Then we get to number 9. So at number 9, I am doing it different. I'm going to be starting at the mesial facial line angle and walking it mesially, and then flaring and pushing down. Whatever that deepest reading is the reading that I'm going to put right here, right there, because that's going to be the mesial of number 9. Okay, so then it would be mesial facial distal, mesial facial distal, and I would write it just like that, mesial facial distal, you know, all the way to 16. So I should end this line with distal buccal of 16.
16, yep.
Okay, so then once I'm done here, then I go to where?
17. No, to the lingual side of one.
16 distal lingual. So 1 to 16 buccal, and then distal buccal, distal lingual of 16 back to number 1.
And then would you go to?
Then after
And
you get done, you would drop down
And
to
then
17.
you drop down to 32.
So you're gonna
Yeah.
On the side.
Right. So to do 16 on the distal lingual, that's a surface towards me because it's in quad 2 lingual. So I'm at my 8 to 9 o'clock position. I'm using my mirror to shine the light because it gets dark with the cheeks and stuff. So then now I'm doing distal lingual line angle to the distal flare, push down the deepest reading. So now if that reading was a 5, I'm putting it on the distal lingual of 16. So now I'm writing backwards. So now I'm going to be doing distal lingual mesial, distal lingual mesial. Okay? And then once I get to 8, then I'm going to be doing mesial lingual distal, mesial lingual distal all the way to number 1. So then I would end with my distal of number 1, my distal lingual of number 1. So I'm writing backwards. Okay? So then I drop down to 32 on the distal buckle, and I would do the same thing. I would start here at the distal buckle line angle, and then bob, 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 get there, tilt, push down, my deepest reading, back at the distal buckle line angle, bob, 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 around the buckle, whatever that deepest number is, and then keep bobbing to the contact, tilt, push down, whatever that deepest reading is. So that's, then you would write it here. So if it was 434, I would write 434 in that box. And then I would go, just like I did on the facial or on the maxillary, I would go this way, and then I would do 17 distal lingual back to number 32 distal lingual. Okay?
I got
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, because a lot of times once y'all get into term 4 and you have to perio chart a patient, a lot of people forget how to write it down on here. So be paying close attention to this and how to write it. This way, and then this way, and then that way. Everybody good? It takes a long time. But once you start doing it for a while, like I've been doing this